It's an interesting question. So TrustMark is the government-endorsed quality scheme. I think you have to think a little bit about its history. So back in the late 1990s, there were some really horrible issues with cowboys, and I hate the term cowboys, but we have this branding that came around for people that did poor quality work. So they looked at what they might put into place, and they had something called the quality mark, believe it or not, with a capital Q and a capital M. And then in 2005, it transferred to TrustMark 2005 Limited that we have today. That was set up by government to try to curb and tackle some of the issues that consumers were having with poor quality, overcharging, but also products that weren't fit for purpose. It's a bit of a sad thing that we still have some of that today. However, we are seeing now £36 billion worth of home improvements in property a year, and we need to make sure that we are reducing the detriment to consumers massively. So when you think about TrustMark, you are thinking about a government-endorsed scheme. That government-endorsed scheme allows you to join through scheme providers. It gives you almost this professionalism that you can't get from other organisations. And the reason I say professionalism is that we need to move away from, excuse the term, a muddy boot style scenario to something that shows that the tradespeople in this country today are professional, they are trained, they are competent, and they will deliver quality work. Because actually, if we do that, people will get confidence about having tradespeople in their home, which means they will borrow more money, spend more money, and we have this really beautiful circle that starts to drive greater need. When we talk about exams, you've got to be careful about how you put that into a bracket. So if go back, so I'm a gas engineer by trade. All right, back in the 70s, I might add. I trained as a gas engineer. I have an evergreen qualification through City and Guilds, and I worked in the industry for a long time. And I set up my own business, and appreciate the nightmare that comes with another bureaucratic scheme, another set of rules, different rules that we have to comply with. So TrustMark is established to work through scheme providers. Scheme providers would determine that you are competent, so competence being technical knowledge, qualification, the ability to demonstrate quality work, but also now including behaviours, because we need to make sure that we as a trade are helping consumers engage with us, that they build that trust. You put those together, which means then TrustMark through its process can be a low-cost entry scheme. The cost of TrustMark is £40 per year. Hasn't gone up for 5 years. If it goes up, it might go up by inflation next year, so it's not massive. But it is all about actually delivering a low-cost quality scheme that doesn't create barriers to entry, will allow good quality tradespeople to enter and be supported. We have things like trading standards approved. So once you're in TrustMark, for a very low price, you can join trading standards approval, which allows you to operate throughout the United Kingdom with that as a part of your certification. Certification is the wrong term. Part of your overall ability to deliver work within certain standards. We do expect people to operate to the correct standard. We expect people to use the correct products. We also expect people to actually care about what they're doing in consumers' houses, because the market, the 36 billion that we already have, is likely to be pushed up massively with the whole desire to meet the needs for low carbon heating, for insulation measures, and that's worth between 600 billion and £1 trillion up to 2050. So we might put, let's say, another 20 billion a year onto that marketplace. So actually as a trade, if you think about opportunity, so as a skilled, competent, good business delivering to the right quality, we can go out and you can promote yourselves and open this market now to something that I think we've never seen before. So there is really good opportunity in terms of bringing this together to help the trades. So when we talk about TrustMark, we're talking now about the ability to look at opportunity. So actually, if you go to other schemes, you might be paying for that luxury. You might be paying £1,000 a year, £2,000 a year. We're saying come to TrustMark because TrustMark is promoting quality, competence and delivery. It is opening markets through lenders, it's opening markets through government, and it's actually looking at how we can create a wider audience. If you then add things like the free access to quality documents, the free access to contracts, the support that you will get, you start having a package that when you put it together for £40 a year and think, less than £1 a week and I get all of this? So what's the catch? There is no catch. All we really want to do is to make sure is that we are a not-for-profit social enterprise, government owned by the brand, that we get quality delivery that helps the consumer get confidence that spends more money in the marketplace. We are aligning, so people will say, I've never heard of TrustMark. Well, I don't go out and spend, £3 million a month advertising TrustMark because we're a low-cost scheme. What we do is we build our whole reputation on quality. All right, so that quality includes from the day you engage a business to helping that business provide a consumer with all the right contracts, the right legal requirements under consumer rights, through to, if you have a problem, how we support the business. So dispute resolution, moving through that whole process to a point where, as a tradesperson, you don't have to go at home at night and have sleepless nights. You have somebody that is holding your hand, taking you through a process and making sure that you can still deliver what you need. And I think we've got to recognise, haven't we, that we talk about tradespeople like they're superhuman, and they are to a degree. So they get up early in the morning, they go off, they do a day's work, they then go out and meet customers and they're quoting for new work, they take that back, they are then delivering quotes. And a 5-day week becomes a 6-day week, becomes a 6.5-day week. And we forget that there are families, children, there is a whole circle of life that has to happen within that environment as well. That puts pressure on the tradesperson, especially if you're a micro or a small business. And most of our businesses in the UK are all micro and smalls. So you work in smaller groups maybe, but you are actually a small unit delivering a service. So, we've got to stop talking now. I don't like the term, people talk about SMEs all the time and they talk about the tier 1s and tier 2s. Yes, they're great. They do great work. They do huge projects. But what we really need here is to think about how do we underpin the belly of our tradespeople, which are the 1 and 2 man bands? How do we make it easier for them to operate? How do we make their lives better? So it's the question I get asked all the time, what's in it for me? What's in it for me is a multiple of different things, not necessarily tangible delivery in terms of a free voucher or a free drill or whatever it may be, but it's about helping you run your business in a way that takes some of that pressure away from you. And that, I think, is worth the £40 a year. It puts minds at rest. I think we recognise in the small business arena that one customer not paying you £2,000 or £3,000 on a bill currently could put you out of business. All right, that's the sad place we are at. And I think so we have to make sure that we have the right quality, we have the right documentation, we have services like escrow services that we're in to make sure that if you're doing a bigger contract, you're not putting yourselves at risk, you're not putting the consumer at risk, you all agree how you deliver. But the thing is that no matter what happens, there will be times where something doesn't go quite right, or something will trigger a bit of a reaction. And at that point, what you've got to be able to do is look for that support, that external support that goes, oh, hang on a minute, well, actually, if you do this and you do this, we find a middle ground, we settle, and we get on with what we need to do. From my point of view, I think any tradesperson, if there are problems or remediation works that need to be done, we have to accept and get on with them. I know sometimes we have those issues with rogue customers. We do see quite a number of vexatious complaints where people will make complaints deliberately to seek to claim compensation because of the culture that we have now got. And we have copied some of the culture from probably across the water, which means actually people think they have work done, they complain, and they hope if they complain about it long enough and hard enough that people walk away and leave it. We need to avoid that. That's why things that I know people have got caught in the past. If someone is asking you to do something which is in addition to what you've agreed, as much as you want to help the customer, document it. Even if it's an email, saying we've agreed that it's X, Y, and Z. By doing that, you're protecting yourself. So you're not creating this huge raft of things you have to do, but you're doing something very simple just to make sure that if somebody comes out and says, I didn't agree with that, you go, oh, yes, you did, and there's the email to do so. When we talk about contracts, that for the smaller businesses, you don't want a 26-page contract that you're taking to a consumer. You want something which is meeting the consumer rights requirements, is very clear. Definitely remember things like showing VAT in all those areas and totals and everything that goes with that, because they're all things that you will get caught out on if you're not careful. All right, just be careful. Everything that you need, we help you with, and that's on our website as well. So there's all sorts of documentation. As much as, I think we have to also recognize, Andy, that the trades are practical. So the worst thing that we could probably do is give you a 26-page document and say, read that before bed. Because I think if it was like me, I'd probably read the first 3.5 paragraphs and think, oh, that's too much, So we have to recognize that we make it plain. It's in, a style that helps people understand clearly and effectively what they need to do. But it is also supportive. And we're spending quite a lot of investment really in terms of resource and time to just build that through and help that process. We have portals now, so that we've built on the websites that once you're in TrustMark, you can log into a portal, and in that portal there are lots of things that you can start to pick up. You have lots of offers that you would expect, but we get approached by many, many people, looking at how you might get a few percent here, you might get those things. But we're also looking at how we support the trades really moving forward. So some of your consumers now won't be just spending a few £1,000s, they'll be spending 30, 40, 50,000 pounds. And believe it or not, some of that those larger sums of money are all now going through almost point of sale loans, which is, I find, quite amazing because they're at some fairly high percentage rates. So we need to think about how we support the business in achieving that and where you go to do that. So we are setting up some panels in those areas, but we're also setting up panels to protect you with financial protection. And some of the other stuff we're looking at would be creating new data intelligence and insights. So actually, when if you're going to do something in a certain area, in a certain street, you could almost risk profile that. So, we know what happens. So for the minute, we've got over about 1.5 million homes that have had retrofit undertaken. So we can tell you things about low carbon, around energy efficiency, and all those different bits and pieces, and kitchens and bathrooms as they start to build. So we have to work together, and by working together, we will make it very different. So businesses delivering quality, TrustMark supporting you to make sure you're informed, actually ensuring that we collaborate and work together. And by doing that, you're going to create an outcome that will really support the future. Probably worth saying as well, I think this week we've seen the Grenfell report come out. I was horrified, to be honest with you, because I think actually, and this is a Simon Ayres view, this isn't anything other than that, if you look at all the different parties involved, whether it be manufacturers, product suppliers, architects, oversight bodies, you pick all of those together, and you are now looking at something where really almost the construction sector, with some of the suppliers and everything else, have a part to play in a 72 death fire, which I think is time for change. I think it's time that we now do things differently. And we can do that. So, everything we've been talking about is about how do we improve, not make it so onerous that you can't deliver, but actually just help people get to a point where we deliver quality. The other thing we have to link back all the time here is to make sure that we're seeing a fairness in charging. So one of the things that we're working with, we have the Small Business Commissioner is one of our board at TrustMark, and we're looking at how we make sure that the smaller micro and small businesses get paid on time. It is so unfair that as a small business you might have to wait 30, 60, 90 days for invoices to be paid. It's enough to put you out of business. My view would be there should be a few days maybe in terms of making sure everything's right, where it should be, but then settle, pay. And if we do that, the cost of money becomes cheaper as well. So there's a whole piece we can do here. The government grants, you've got to remember, we are, wherever you may sit within parties and colours and whatever it may be, there are significant capital and grant funding mechanisms out there to help deliver. So at the moment, and that's mainly around social housing. You've then got to remember there are 28.3 million homes in the UK, 24 million of those need to be or have a level of retrofit. Whether that's low carbon first and then energy efficiency, whether it may be energy efficiency or whole house and then low carbon, doesn't really matter. But the interaction price is no longer a few thousand, it's 15 or 20,000. And I think it would be really remiss of our trades, even if you don't want to do it directly, that you're not talking about setting up some little consortiums or cooperatives to look at how you help. And we do that on a local basis. So one of my passions and desires would be to create a localized delivery of energy efficiency and low carbon, which improve communities because actually you're helping the community reduce its cost of living. Societal improvement because actually now I've got a purpose. I'm creating more wealth in the area. I'm developing and delivering a better place for people to live. I bring shops back in, I bring manufacturing back in, I bring trades back in. In the trades, when we talk about trades, it's not just our trades that we think about. It would be baristas in coffee shops, it would be all those things that support it as well. So there's a whole piece here, if we're clever, that we can make happen. So, let's watch this space. Yes, we might have to go off and spend a few days doing various things, but we're talking to government about trying to get some tax breaks and everything else so that if you do training, I know that you can't take 3 days out of your week to go off and do some training. So actually if you do the training part-time, whatever process you get into, that we look at how we can find a way for the government to say, Andy, thank you very much for doing that training. You're going to help us deliver our goal, but in return, here's a tax break or here's a way that you can do that. And those are the things we're talking to Treasury about.